I will go ahead and reconvene this regular meeting, and that is at 3.1. 3.2, Pledge of Allegiance with Mr. Holcomb. Would you please lead us?
I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Holcomb. Moving on to item 4, executive session. There is no need. Moving on to number 5, communications and announcements. Dr. Baca, would you please introduce this?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board and Executive Team. Tonight, it gives me great pleasure to have my superintendent's report reflect the excellence that is the Madison Elementary School District staff. First of all, I'd like to recognize our 12 News A-plus Teacher of the Week, and that is Mrs. Lavina Baum. Is she here? Come on up. You're going to say a few words. Ms. Baum was awarded the 12 News A-plus Teacher of the Week. She's a preschool teacher at Madison Rose Lane, and she was nominated by Olga, a parent from her 4-year-old classroom. So we want to say congratulations, and if you'd like to say anything, a few words at the podium with the board. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I don't do this every day, but I am so humbled with this honor and with great leadership like Ms. Keisha and my mentor, Julia Keffer. They have been amazing, and every year I just keep on growing. So thank you.
Thank you. And do you have anyone else here with you? I know you recognize Ms. Briley, and I think your principal's there too.
Who is amazing. And then my 2 sons who go to Madison 1. So,
yay! Thank you so much.
Have daughters who go to University of Arizona, Tucson.
Arizona. We still love her.
Nicole wants a picture.
Okay.
And what Nicole wants, Nicole gets.
Why don't you go ahead and stay there, and I'll read the rest, so you can just stay there, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay there. Next, I would like to recognize Ms. Michaela Salcedo. She is our band and guitar and choir teacher at Madison No. 1 Middle School. Earlier this year, she was surprised by the Fiesta Bowl with a $1,000 Donors Choose gift card for her classroom as part of the College Football Playoff Foundation, #Big Day for Teachers. I know you've done an amazing job at Madison No. 1, and congratulations on this honor. Would you like to say a few words?
I would just like to say that it was such a big surprise. I was totally unexpecting it. I mean, Nicole just made a huge thing out of it. It was also amazing. And I just want to say, I walked into the band room, they had all this confetti just like blowing up in my face, and I was like, oh, okay. But I mean, it was completely amazing. I just want to thank Ms. Ball as well for being just a supportive admin, and the whole school has just been so amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And pictures?
Thank you.
Congratulations. Ms. Ball.
Thank you.
Next, are 3 recognitions with our International Baccalaureate program. As you know, that program aims to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who strive to create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. The Arizona International Baccalaureate Schools annually recognizes IB Teachers and Students of the Year in the primary years, which is elementary schools, middle years, which is mainly middle schools, but are also at some high schools, and 2 high school programs, the diploma program and the career-related program. We are proud to have 2 IB Teachers of the Year and 1 IB Student of the Year from Madison. So the first person I'd like to recognize is our primary year program Arizona Teacher of the Year for Madison Simus, kindergarten teacher Jamie Monroe.
Thank you. I have so much gratitude in my heart. Last year was anything but easy, right? I had an amazing support system, including administration, starting with you, Dr. Vaca, all the way to my admin and my IB coordinator, Melissa Powers. I have an amazing kindergarten team. I couldn't have done it without the collaboration of a wonderful team. And, of course, my students, little natural inquirers that they are, keep me on my toes every day. I got to be 10 steps ahead of them always. And my amazing parents. The support from my parents is just irreplaceable. With all of that, I have to say thank you. I couldn't have done it without any of that. And I'm very grateful and truly touched. So thank you.
And who do you have here tonight? Would you like to introduce anyone that you have here with you tonight?
Yes, my better half, my husband, Benicio. His last name is Baca.
Primo.
Thank you.
Next, we're proud to have the Arizona Teacher of the Year for our middle years program from Madison Meadows, our visual arts teacher, Megan Tracy.
Thank you so much. We moved here 7-8 years ago-ish, and I chose Simus as the IB school for my son Liam. Little did I know that we would be here today. I love IB. It naturally fits with my teaching style, and I'm just so thankful to a lot of you in this room, the Simus family out here. I know many of them, and they've really helped me become a better teacher. And great admin, great people on the board, supporters of the arts. IB was the inspiration of getting through last year. I think Jamie can attest to that. Without that ability to just innovate right there while you're teaching, I don't know if we could have done it. But it was, thank you to everyone, and my husband Daniel, my son Liam, and my son Jack, who's at Phoenix Boys Choir. So he couldn't be here tonight, but thank you to my family.
And finally, it's the reason why we're here. It's the reason why I have a job. It's the reason why we do what we do in a very passionate way, and that's recognizing our student of the year for our primary years program. She was at Madison Simus, but is now a 5th grader at Madison Meadows, and that's to Kylie Smith. Kylie, come on up.
Thank you, and I want to thank all my teachers that I've had throughout all the years, and Miss Powers, because she just helped me become a better person through IB.
Thank you, Kylie. And who do you have here with you tonight?
My grandma, my dad, my mom, and my uncle.
Congratulations. Up and take a picture, Kylie. Congratulations. So congratulations to all of our recipients, and recognizing you as very proud, and for all of the people who support you each and every day, we thank you as well. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting. However, you're also welcome to be excused. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vaca. We will be moving on to governing board member reports, and I believe the last time I started on my right, so this time I will start on my left. Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody who participated in our study session. I thought it was hugely informative and actually very inspiring. And it was good to see the passion that all the middle school and MTA administrators had for what they're doing and their vision for the future, their dedication to the students, their academics, and most importantly, their emotional health and the cultures that they're building. So it was very uplifting and very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gresham.
Thank you. I would just also repeat what Mr. Holcomb said. It was very nice to hear from all our schools and see all the great things they're doing. Also, Mr. Holcomb and I get to sit on the strategic planning committee, so those have been really good. We had our second meeting last week, I think. So that's really great to hear all the different perspectives and really to see, I mentioned this at our meeting last week, it's so great to see that we all really have the same goal. We really have the ultimate goal is all the same. We have all different ways to get there and perspectives, but so it's really nice to see when everyone comes together like that. So it's been good. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Osborne.
I just want to thank all the principals for their 2 weeks of reports. They're all very good, and I think it helps us understand resource issues and direction. And, I'm always impressed by, I think we have a lot of challenges coming through the pandemic. The resilience that our district has displayed is remarkable, and I just want to thank all the presenters.
Thank you. Ms. Kazi.
I just want to welcome everybody back from fall break. That was, I think, more well-deserved than any other fall break than I can recall. I hope everyone came back feeling somewhat refreshed, and I will save my comments for all the talking I'm going to get to do about the ASBA political agenda. So you'll thank me later.
Thank you, Ms. Kazi. I have nothing to report except my gratitude to all of our school principals and all of our administrators and social workers who are helping our teachers, our staff, and our students navigate the myriad of challenges that this pandemic has created. And I just wanted to thank them for their dedication to their students and to their staff. Moving on to call to the public. We do have one call to the public. Ms. Susong.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking the board for supporting portable air filters for each classroom. Studies are showing how good this is in not only controlling COVID, but other viruses that are in the air, such as flu. This is really important because if we continue with mitigation plans that help keep our classrooms clean in different ways than we've done in the past, we could have school years where we just don't have kids out for sickness, which means we keep families healthy and our communities healthy. It becomes a domino effect. So I want to thank you for that to start with. Next, I would like to ask about the status of outdoor lunches. My understanding is that, unlike last year, the kids are still eating in the cafeterias. Last year, I know they set up really nice mitigation plans where the children rotated through different areas of the school. Sometimes they were in the cafeteria, but they were the only group in the cafeteria. And we need to remember that COVID is airborne. That means when a child goes in to eat lunch and they take off their mask and they eat, if they are sick, choke on food, or just talking or singing and do all the wild things kids do when they eat, which is more of a performance than actually eating, that they're putting it in the air. Okay, so the next kid that comes through sits down, takes off their mask to eat their meal. It's not just about touch or contact. It's in the air and they're breathing it in. Okay, so this is really important. This is what we're seeing more and more in the studies that are coming out with air filtration, and why it's been really encouraged that people eat outside, like if you're going to go to a restaurant. So the same thing with the kids. A lot of kids filtering in through the cafeterias. And this is a point of risk for the virus. So I really want us to hopefully start planning that and start getting us back to what we were doing last year. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As this is not an agendized item, we are not able to discuss it per open meeting law. Dr. Bach, would you please follow up on this item with Ms. Susong?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you so much. Moving on to our consent agenda, I will accept a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Dr. Osborne, seconded by Ms. Causey. Please vote.
I don't think I'm logged in. Oh, there it goes.
Dr. Osborne and I both had our screens decide to delay. However, everyone voted aye. That motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to information items 8.1. Dr. Baca, will you please introduce this item and then I'm sure kick it to
Sure.
Ms. Causey.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board and Executive Team. As you know, you selected Ms. Causey to represent you at the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, and I will turn it over to her to go over their political agenda for 2022.
Thank you, Dr. Baca. So this is a presentation that starts strong with the first slide and then quickly devolves. So what I decided to do, because this year we again have re-entered the world of laundry list political agenda making at the Arizona School Board Association, sadly, is to just really differentiate what was different for next year, for the 2022 political agenda versus the 2021 political agenda. So I've given you a copy of the 2022 political agenda, all 3 pages of it. And so you can look at that at your leisure. It really does not differ dramatically from 2021. So I'm going to go quickly through what was different. So I also just want to talk, before I address this issue, somewhat about the tenor of the meeting. You can move forward, Danielle, that'd be great. So this meeting was, it had a feel of not unlike the tenor of the way we're working with each other or not working with each other nationally. I know in the past, school district governing board members come from all walks of life, all different political perspectives, backgrounds, you name it. And so we've always had at delegate assemblies a lot of different perspectives, and there's been healthy discussion. And this year's delegate assembly felt decidedly different, and which was really kind of sad in my mind. I felt that there was less, less grace given to people. It was just, the tenor was different. And I think it's just, once again, I think governing boards, just like every body, are a reflection of where we are as a country. And that was, I think, something that we experienced as well. So as a result, I think that also was probably reflected in the legislative group. So there wasn't a lot of interest in doing anything different, because I think there was just not a lot of appetite to take on people that might challenge them aggressively. So I think that's probably why you see an agenda that's very similar to the previous year. The only thing that was really struck was all the COVID mitigation issues, which was a large part of last year's legislative agenda. So let's talk really briefly about what we saw added. What we saw added really relates directly to student health and well-being. So the first new item was providing funding to individual districts to implement locally directed school safety programs, as well as student mental health and well-being initiatives. Also added was providing funding for districts to implement research-based programs to address social emotional learning through mental health and well-being, support research-based cultural proficiency and responsiveness training for school staff. And finally, this was something that was kind of added last year, but I didn't know if all the board was aware. This was an area where there's interest in some districts in actually providing affordable housing options to their faculty and staff because of the inability to recruit, specifically in rural areas of Arizona. Next slide, please. And then really after that, it really dropped off as far as any new items that we were talking about. So for preserve and strengthen local control, basically these are items that you've seen probably for the last 5 years. Not much has changed. In regards to the improving outcomes for all students, the new item that was approved was support policy that promotes social emotional wellness as a critical component of improving the school climate, safety, and learning for all students and staff. You can see this SEL theme was quite strong during this delegate assembly. And finally, in the area of requiring public accountability for taxpayer dollars spent on education, a new area was approved on opposing any measure that would result in fewer qualified voters from being easily able to vote or register to vote. Obviously, there was a great deal of interest at governing board levels in ensuring that any voter in a school district that is qualified has the ability to vote on a school governing board election or a bond or override election. And so there was a great deal of debate about this, and it ultimately did pass and was added to the agenda. So again, I don't want to talk a whole lot because there weren't a lot of changes. You have the agenda in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kazi, and thank you again for your leadership and representation of Madison throughout this process, which I know can be a bit of a mud fight.
And I just wanted to call Ms. Gresham.
Yes,
she tapped in and was able to experience the process. And so I don't know if you had any additional comments you wanted to add.
No, just agree with you as far as the tone of the meeting. There was a few people that it seemed like they were using it to just kind of vent their frustrations in general, and it wasn't really anything that ASBA had control over. And then, there were a few people that really wanted to add some legitimate things, but yeah, there was a lot of it was taken over with frustrations. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members?
Just a thank you.
Yes, I think that we collectively offer our gratitude to Ms. Gresham and Ms. Kazi for representing Madison in this process. I believe each one of us has had an opportunity to serve as a delegate to Arizona School Boards Association, and it is a cross-section of Arizona. And with that, it is diverse and interesting and A to Z.
I believe Mitra gets one more opportunity at our county meeting to represent us, correct?
That's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Thank you,
Oh my
Mitra.
goodness. Thank you so much, Ms. Kazi. Moving on to 8.2. Dr. Baca, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board and Executive Team. As you know, annually we provide an update on our bond projects. I want to begin by thanking our Madison community for their continued support in providing funds that allow us to create safe but exciting learning environments for our students and safe places and inviting environments for our instructional staff to be able to provide excellent teaching. Tonight, I'd like to ask Mr. Patrick Kelvin, Director of Construction, to present this, and he has some guests with him as well to be able to add to the information and address any questions you may have. Mr. Kelvin?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca, members of the executive team. Thanks for the opportunity to share your Madison construction bond update tonight. We have two pieces. I will be introducing our partner architect, ADM Architects, to come up and share the design they've come up with for the Madison Park Middle School replacement. And after that, I'll come back up and I'll share a few projects that we're working on across the district. So at this time, if ADM can come up, please.
And feel free to adjust the microphone and step in a little more for everyone to hear, especially online.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca. My name is Ben Barcone. I'm the principal of the ADM group. And before we get started today, on behalf of our entire firm, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to be part of your design team. As we've been working on this for the last 6 months, I personally believe this is going to be another signature project similar to the Madison Center for the Arts, and something that you'll be proud of for years to come. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. We put a lot of thought and effort into it, and we'll show you some of that today. So with me today is just two of our team members. We got a lot more people back at the office that have been working on your project, but we have our principal, Nina Sheriff, and we have our Director of Design, Scott Waltenberg, who will kind of walk you through where we're at today, and then we're available for questions. Thank you.
Good evening. So we've been working on this project for about 6 months. What we've been doing is working with Ms. Garvey, Patrick, Principal Rodriguez, as well as a number of key people from the two schools and also various members of the community. So as we've been going through this process, we've held a number of community meetings to present to them the design concepts that you will see in front of you today. So, as you all know, this is a STEAM school and it's on an existing campus. So, this will be a phased project on an occupied campus. So, during the design process, we took that into consideration on how we were going to build this project. Our design philosophy or concept for the school was a kaleidoscope. Being a STEAM school, we thought the kaleidoscope had a lot of elements, and so you'll see that in the presentation today. I don't think you'll be able to see as I point on the screen the concepts, but basically just to orientate you on the site plan, Campbell Avenue is at the front of the school on the top of your screen there. We've got 16th Street on the right hand side of the slide and 14th Street on the left hand side of the slide. The bottom, the south side of the site backs up against the existing park area. So the first thing that we had, and if you look at the center of your slide there, is the existing cafeteria that's located on the site today. And you'll notice there's a circle right in the center of that building kind of lends itself to do. Again, picking up that kaleidoscope theme there. So that kind of set how we were going to construct the project. So one of the things as working with the City of Phoenix that we heard by working with the people on the campus is there's really not separate drop-offs today. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to separate the parent drop-off with the bus drop-off. I'm sorry.
And Nina, that's for our online viewers. They need to be able to hear.
Okay. So we wanted to address the situation of student safety. And so we separated the parent drop-off from the bus drop-off and then also a separate drop-off for the preschool area. So working in off of Campbell, we have an entrance, as you will see on the top right-hand side, and you will see that there's little cars there that make that loop around the slide there. So basically coming in here, making the loop, so there's plenty of queuing space for the parents to drop off, come around the loop. There's a big drop-off area on top of the baseball field, loop back around and outside onto Campbell. And you'll also see that we have parking lined up along the Campbell Avenue there, and then the visitor parking area for the administration areas. Moving over on the left-hand side, this is where we have our bus drop-off. So those nice little yellow rectangles that you see there are representative of the buses. And we also have additional parking for staff located in that area. Moving down off of 14th Street here, this will be our main drop-off for preschool. So there's plenty of parking for parents to come in, get out of their car, and take the students into the preschool building. This will also serve as additional parking during the weekends for parking to the fields. So again, back to our site layout here. On the right-hand side, you'll see 3 buildings. Those buildings are mainly comprised of the administration area and classrooms for the site. And again, this will be constructed in phase 1. Moving over on the left-hand side, right adjacent to the existing cafeteria, we have our gymnasium. And then the building behind it is our preschool area and community education, with our 2 playgrounds above that support the preschool classrooms. Then as you will see behind the cafeteria, we have 2 basketball courts. We also have 1 basketball court kind of located behind one of the classroom buildings. Again, with the concept that we can spread out the students who have different grade levels throughout the campus. Then on 16th Street, we have our full baseball field, softball field, and then our football track and field area located up against 14th Street and the park area. So as you see through the hardscape, we have lots of curves going around the buildings, and tried to create some interest. So everything basically on the left-hand side of the screen will be part of phase 2, and then the fields will be the last part of the phase. So just a little more detail on the overall floor plans. Building A is mainly Madison Park classrooms as well as administration and the nurses area. Building B has Madison Highland Prep admin in there and their specialty classrooms on the first floor. And then Building C has Madison Park specialty classrooms here on the first floor, as well as the little purple section that juts out as the media center. So the goal is in phase 1 to have all the general classrooms that support that school so that the school is up and running, they have the existing cafeteria to eat in, and then they have their classrooms and media center as well. Second floor, whoops, okay. Second floor, Building A, again, you'll see in the center section here, it's a little clearly noted here, we have collaborative areas in both Building A and Building B and C. Those are kind of modeled after the collaborative areas that are over at Meadows, because we heard that that works very well with the open partitions from the classrooms to those collaborative areas. So Building A has the Madison Park classrooms, general classrooms, and Building B has Madison Highland Prep classrooms. We have a learning stair that goes down from the second floor of Building B down into the media center that the both buildings are linked together by this little green line going from A to B. It's kind of an enclosed bridge area so that the circulation in all the classroom buildings are tied together. Building D is the gymnasium, and in the gymnasium we have the locker rooms as well as the restrooms that support the gym. We have a full-size gymnasium that also is divided with a partition and where you can have two courts played during practice session. We have a concession stand that is adjacent, that is both serves the gym as well as the outdoor field areas. And then down on the kind of the left-hand side is our PE storage, and then the weight room for Madison Highland Prep. Building E, as I mentioned, is mainly made up of the preschool program, developmental preschool in the purple, and then community ed, which is in the lower kind of yellow section below on the floor plan. So, we wanted to give you an idea of what it was looking like from the outside. So this is a massing kind of model as you would be sitting on Campbell and 16th Street. So what you see in front of you here is the in the lower corner of it is the main entrance, the lobby area that would go into the Madison Park Middle School with the visitor parking that we talked about on the outside. This is again where the parents would drop off along that curve there. And then we have one of the basketball courts that's on the other side of the fence. This is a two-story classroom building. The materials that we're using will be masonry, block construction with steel, masonry with integral color block. So those will be in the warmer tones there. We also have some metal panels, some EIFS on the second floor, and then the little metal panels along on the top of the roof. They're not only functional to hide all those lovely mechanical units, that's a necessary evil, but we will be doing those in the school colors of blue so that we can tie in with the existing school colors to give the school some identity. So what you see is the two buildings, both A and B and C in this perspective here. And then you'll see kind of in the covered canopies over the main entrances, we have little circles in them, again, pulling that kaleidoscope theme, but also those are going to provide some shade and shadow throughout the day. The other view of the campus is looking from the corner of 14th Street and Campbell. So the building on the forefront there is our preschool building and community ed building. The two areas in green are the playground areas for the preschool. And then the building in the background of that is the new gymnasium. And then right behind that, that's you can see the existing cafeteria building with the field surrounding those two buildings. So this gives you a little better idea of the color rendition of the exterior palette. You can see the parking that's located along Campbell, as well as the parent queuing that's coming up along and making it that curve around that visitor parking area. And then this front entry rendering shows you what the main entrance into the campus. One of the things we wanted to do is give the campus an identity as parents or visitors came on site to know which building was the entrance to go into this school. And then this is one of the money shots, as we affectionately call it. So it kind of shows you a little more dramatic look, shows you the colors that we're going to try to introduce, just, give it again that school identity with the blue colors. We're going to do this just with lighting, and you can see that as the entrance in that gate there, kind of in the center section, shows you the breezeways that are located between the two buildings, and we've created some additional shading for the students with the buildings being overlapping. So as the sun comes across, that'll give a lot of natural shading throughout the day. And then this is our last money shot with the background of the city in it. But again, this just gives you a feel for what it looks like lit up at nighttime. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, I just have a question, and this is a rendering of the new building that too. But what about the shade structure? The solar structures that are there? Was there a plan to reuse those, or what were we going to do with that?
So, if you're familiar with the solar structures out there, some of them are very, very customized so that you've got them going in two different directions along 14th Street, so they can cover 2 parking spots. As we've been going through this, we were going to try to use as many of them as we could. Unfortunately, the configuration of those solar structures don't necessarily line up with the parking that we have today. So, having said that, we've been working with your contractor to get a price to buy back the solar structures. You're almost done with your contract. Mm-hmm. So there's a dollar amount to buy back. There's a dollar amount to replace with the panels that you currently have. Keeping in mind that those panels are almost 10 years old, so the efficiency of them is so much less than what you could get today. So we've gotten a price for what would it take to upgrade those in today's more efficient solar panels. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be in the best interest of the district to buy out your contract, and we'll save the numbers, but it's probably half of what it would cost you to reinstall the existing inefficient solar panels on a new structure. But we have spent a lot of time talking to your finance people and working through, all the numbers to try and come up with the different options for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kazi.
Thank you. So question on, I love the, so it looks like the western exposure, there's not a lot of windows except for on the second floor building. Can you talk a little bit about the heat mitigation plans you have for those windows?
So again, the windows will be tinted or colored glass, so it's, of course, high efficiency insulated glass. The second thing, this is a view of the east side, and you can't really see the detail, but we have fins along the windows, which during the day will provide shade.
Yeah, I was wondering about
the face of those windows. Mm-hmm. Also, yeah, there you go. You can kind of get a better idea what those fins look like and some of the materials to cover the windows and the location of the fins themselves. And then, of course, as we mentioned, the interior courtyards will be shaded by the 2-story buildings where maybe the media center would have floor-to-ceiling glass, but at the same time, it'll be shaded 90% of the time.
Awesome. And then one quick follow-up question. So our fields tend to be used by other organizations sometimes on the weekends. Can you talk a little bit about access to those fields while securing our building? Has there been some thought put into that?
So this shot here kind of shows you how we've got fencing located which will separate the parking from the buildings themselves. And we'll also have wrought iron fencing along 16th Street. You have an existing masonry wall across the entire park area in the back. It's a 6-foot masonry wall. We're talking about extending the height of that with maybe some wrought iron guardian type fence. Guardian's another word for it would be bent over, making it very difficult for people to climb over, and extending that to about 8 foot along the southern property line. And then if we could look at a shot on the east side, again, we've separated the buildings themselves from the playfields, so you have a secondary perimeter security so you can access the fields. It goes without saying that, we tried to give you a competition baseball field, a softball field. We've had a lot of conversation of how far is the outfield home run line, and we're like right there. We think we can do that. As a precautionary measure, we've talked about maybe doing a 16-foot high fence in case you have some really good athletes out there. We want to make sure we don't damage our building. The interesting part about this site, it's about a 6 or an 8 foot fall from Campbell to the south property line. I mean, that's a long ways. So as we get down, we've got to control the watershed, and so right at the track we'll have a seating wall that goes that entire length there that students or visitors can actually sit on the seating wall, which also serves as kind of a retention wall and a way to get the water away from the fields. The fields will be up about 1.5 feet, or that particular football field will be up about 1.5 feet from the other fields themselves. We're planning on doing some flood irrigation for the outfields in the baseball field, which you could use during the summer, but maybe put in irrigation so during the fall and the other times that kids are there, you don't want water to be on there for a week and a half, right? So we paid a lot of attention. This is a huge site. We were able to get you everything that we thought that you would need for a middle school, high school, and we're working diligently on that.
Thank you. Dr. Osborne.
So the classroom feel, is it correct to say we've seen what they've done at Meadows? It's going to be very similar. So they like glass on the inside and open air. And then second question, you could also go into is, I think they've been pretty good about keeping the Park students and the Highland Prep students from blending too much. How have you accomplished that? Because there seems like some areas where they cross over.
So basically what we did is, yes, to answer your question, we did separate the lower grade levels from the upper grade levels because we all know that's always a concern. So that's really done by building, number one. Number two, the typical classrooms are following the Meadows model that we have the glass folding wall, the wall that is aligned with the corridor that can be folded all the way back and opened up into the collaborative area that runs down the center of the classrooms there. So right, that kind of blue area that's shaded in the middle in both buildings are the open collaborative areas. The only place we feel that they'll really mix is when they would be going either to the media center or to the cafeteria, or the gym. So administratively, that's probably would be handled with schedule on how, which students go at what time on the campus. But as far as the buildings themselves, we tried to keep Madison Highland Prep in one building and Madison Park in the other building.
Go ahead.
And a follow-up question on the gym. I know one of the issues they have now is it's a fairly small gym, so either Highland Prep can use it or the Park students can use it at certain times, and so it's resulted in outdoor PE at 11 o'clock on. Was there some thought in allowing joint uses of that so that And my son Cooper in particular would like to make sure that he does not like running on the track at 11 o'clock.
So if you notice in building D there, that black line that separates, you can see that the courts are running. So the main court runs from basically, if you look at on the right-hand side, the restroom down, so that would be like competition. But during the day, when both schools are in there, we have a droppable partition that comes down that's basically a screen so that you can have two classes utilizing that gym at the same time.
And so I might add also, as we went through the programming, we looked at the Madison Middle School gym, and this is pretty much the same size and the same components that you have over there.
And I think that'll be great for some of our community partners because I know Rams basketball, there's always a shortage of courts, and to be able to run multiple games, I think will be a huge help to our community.
Yes. Ms. Gresham.
Thank you. I just want to remind, maybe for those that don't know, that the cafeteria was recently redone. They call it the Commons.
Yeah, the Commons.
How long ago was that?
About 4 years ago.
4 years. So, yeah, just in case people are wondering why it's the existing cafeteria is still being used, it's fairly new. I do have a question. And of course, we're always concerned about shade and heat in Phoenix, and I like seeing all the green space and trees. So, any opportunity for shade we're always end up having to add shade at all our campuses with either the canopies or trees. So, I would definitely maximize that, and as well as as far as the parking lot, I didn't see any covered. Is that added later, or what? Is there going to be some covered parking? Because I know that's always appreciated too. So, thanks.
Well, I think as far as the covered parking, when it's all said and done, it's going to come down to the budget on the project.
So the other thing I might add, if you'll remember, the cafeteria itself is, I think, white. And so we've got a bit alternate to maybe paint that. And it's not a whole lot of money, but to paint the exterior so it all kind of blends together and looks like one campus.
Thank you. Ms. Garvey, were you going to share something? I saw you reaching for your microphone.
Madam President, members of the board and executive team, and Dr. Baca. I was just going to answer the question about, are we going to be putting shade structures out there for parking? And it is 100% budget dependent. And to your point, Ms. Gresham, about the shade, we had several students. I think we probably had 3 students on the committee that were very, very vocal about they really wanted more shade and could you put shade. And so it was really neat to see that process go through it and see the student voice that's actually been incorporated in a lot of this design. So we're excited, and they were so excited.
Thank you. Dr. Osborne?
Follow-up quick. Can you go to a slide that has the cafeteria or the commons area? And I think my question is,
I think you might need new batteries.
The current layout allows for a lot of indoor-outdoor dining, and where does that occur under this? And if you could kind of describe, the portal is great for the audience, but not so much for us. Kind of describe where that would be.
So if you see the existing cafeteria on the site plan, you'll notice the gray shaded area on the lower left-hand side there, and then it says outdoor eating plaza. So we're maintaining the existing structure that's attached to the cafeteria right now, which will add shade, and then we're also adding some additional shading out there as well for the covered picnic tables that exist. And then over on your left-hand side, just behind the gymnasium and the preschool area, if you see the canopies in there, you'll see kind of, how the shading and the round circles. So again, through architectural design, we're trying to provide additional shade kind of all throughout. So everywhere that you see those kind of canopies with the round circles in it, those are representing canopies. And then we've also accomplished shade, like Ben says, with the overlapping 2-story architectural design of the classroom buildings.
Thank you. I actually have a question. It might be more addressed to Dr. Baca and Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Garvey. I'm familiar with how the bond projects work. I was fortunate enough to be part of previous bond projects, but I don't know if all of our constituents understand exactly how that works. Can you fill us in on how a design like this has been reached in terms of it being a collaborative process?
Sure, I'll do my best, Madam President, members of the board and executive team. And whenever there's a bond that's passed, obviously we go through phases of the sale of the bonds, and oftentimes it's in at least 2 phases, if not more. That allows us to use bonds throughout the district, and when we specifically have that is passed by the voters, if there is a rebuild of a school, that's usually where a good portion of the money goes. As part of our processes, we utilize committees, especially at the site level, to be able to collaborate and to discuss and to design and redesign and debate and what is needed. And most of the time, we're able to have the committee get a lot of what they've desired, but no committee ever gets what they desire. So it's comprised of staff, community members, parents, and students. As Ms. Garvey pointed out in terms of the voice of that. As we continue to move forward with that, the other thing that I think we just need to realize is with the increased prices of goods, especially steel, and the delay of that, we're not going to probably get all that we would have wanted when we originally passed the bond as a result of those prices. So I hope that kind of answers the question in terms of when the bond is passed and when we sell it, how we then still involve our school stakeholders and district stakeholders in the conversation of what is used.
Thank you very much. I think that oftentimes parents and community members and taxpayers don't understand how it goes from voting yes on a bond to finding a design like this. What is that process? What does that curve look like? So I wanted to pose that question as much for the education of everybody as much as the record. Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if it'd be appropriate, because it's going to be her new home with Maggie, Ms. Rodriguez, would want to comment about the design and the process, because this is also, my kids were, I was a park parent for over a decade, went through temporary buildings, and the building is now over 70 years old. Was campus. So I know you've been involved in the process. I'm interested in your insights.
Mr. Holcomb, Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Baca, and executive team, we're all very excited for this rebuild. I think we wish we could snap our fingers and be in our new building tomorrow. It's been great to be a part of this process, and like I said, I don't know what else to say other than we are just very, very excited and anxious to get into the new building. And unfortunately, there have been delays because of COVID and the steel shortage that Dr. Baca mentioned. So we're just excited to get the process going and get into our new classrooms. And I know the kids are really excited too, just trying to describe to them what we're going to have. You can tell just how excited they are, and the 8th graders are very sad that they're not going to get to be in it unless they attend Madison Highland Prep. So we're just thrilled.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Are there any other questions from board members with regards to this design?
Sorry, I just have one more. You kind of mentioned the phasing, you said the academic buildings. So could you kind of explain how, with the existing buildings and how the transition is going to work real quick?
So basically what's going to happen is the first building that will go down is the gymnasium. Of course, we've worked with the school site, so this is not a surprise to them and with the district to make sure that that's okay. We do have some challenges on this actual piece of property because right now it's on a chiller system. So we have to be very careful on what buildings we take down first and where the chillers are presently located as we start to go through the process. So again, the first part of the project would be the demolition of the gymnasium, and then we will have the ability to build the 3 classroom buildings essentially located on the right-hand side of the site plan as you see here. So as I mentioned, after the first phase, they're going to be minus some play area and that kind of thing because the general contractor will more than likely use some of the existing field for their construction laydown area. But they will at least have all their classrooms, their media center, and the existing cafeteria. And we'll work with the general contractor to make sure that the fencing's up there safe so all the kids can just stay within the safe zone per se. The second phase basically will be the gymnasium located on the left-hand side of the cafeteria. And then we have to basically, we're trying to keep the existing preschool there as long as we can. So they're really the last phase. And so the way we designed it with the play areas up on top is where their existing building is. And so we'll be able to build their new building and then move them into the new building. And then the last part of the phase is really getting all that site work done with the ball fields and the football field.
Thank you. And for those of you who may not be aware, MTA's preschool is sited at Madison Park, as is a federal Head Start preschool program. So that's the preschool that is being referred to as we move through these design plans. I think this design is beautiful. I love the kaleidoscope analogy. I'm excited to see what this ends up looking like in the flesh, so to speak. I really appreciate the lighting. The lighting that is available in the evening, especially for our neighbors there in the neighborhood and the community, but also for all of the individuals that use our campuses over the course of the weekends. And I'm just excited for our students and our staff to be able to work in such a beautiful place. Thank you. If there are any other questions?
And I think Mr. Kelvin has continued to report on our bonds for the other projects.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where did this come from?
Thank you, ADM Group. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca, members of the executive team, I'm going to share a few more slides tonight with you on some other projects we have around the district.
You may want to use the keyboard arrow. That may be easier.
Okay. Over at Madison Meadows, we're going to enter phase 3 of construction over there. It's remodeling of the gymnasium. So scope of work, we're going to knock down the existing locker rooms and some of the storage and support areas. We're going to build new. We're going to add a flex room. And in that flex room, they're going to run their programs like wrestling and maybe dance and some other things. It gives them a secondary place to take the kids and just kind of spread out and have programs there. We're going to have an indoor-outdoor concession room on the building, which will serve the fields, the court, then an interior window for the gymnasium itself. And lastly, full remodel of the gymnasium. We're talking all the surfaces, wood floor, basketball standards, HVAC upgrades, and lighting. So it'll have a fresh new feel when we're done, and we were able to reuse and remodel a lot of the space, which we had some structural engineers go in. They deemed it structurally sound, and there's some cost savings involved there, and pretty excited about this project. Timeline, we're going to get in as early as spring break to start this project, and we're looking at completing, over winter recess, and it'll be all ready and furnished for the kids to show up after that winter recess. Okay, being the final phase at Meadows, we continue to stay mindful not only about the safety security needs, but also the healthy environment. So, we're implementing a higher standard of air filtration. A lot of the systems in schools all over the country are rated between MERV 5 to 8 filters. We're looking at using pre-filters of MERV 8, then secondary filters of a much higher value. The flex area, students to exercise, we're spreading them out a little bit more, just doing everything we can in design to help keep the staff and students healthy. So we're currently working with that architect on the design. We have a committee with the school and the students and a couple community members. Majority of the design's complete. We're in the formal process of selecting a general contractor for that project. We should have them selected by the end of this month, and I'll be happy to bring that contractor to a November board meeting. Okay, next up, right next door, Medicine One Cafe remodel. Scope of work is full kitchen remodel. A couple of our most recent builds over at Meadows and Madison Park, we have this nice open kitchen format with a true servery. We're really looking at doing that at number one. It's going to help us do a few things. One is there's a bottleneck getting the students served, giving them less time to sit and enjoy their meal. And it also really limits us on what we can offer, because serving windows just don't give us the latitude to show them. Now, at what we're looking at doing, like at Park and Meadows, we'll have a servery where you enter one side, and it has a full food service line, reach-ins for other types of lunches and things like that, and you exit out of the other side with multiple point of sales. We can get the kids in, give them a bigger selection, get them out quicker. Along with that project, as you enter the cafe and dining room, there's some big windows with doors on each side. We're looking at taking those windows out and putting a couple of roll-up doors in there, so that whole end will open up right to the quad of the school with the big solar canopy out there. We want to enhance that area, adding to the patio, putting a little sight wall around it, and then some fabric shades most likely, and giving the children another area to dine, spreading them out, getting them in the fresh air, things like that. So, again, well into design at this point. We're grouping all three projects for general contractor selection, which means is we're looking at proposals from all the contractors, then we're multiple awarding on projects. So, like the gymnasium, the cafe, and the third project we have, we'll all have those hopefully selected by the end of the month, then to the board for pre-construction services in November. Okay, the last big project is Madison Front Office Safety Security Improvements. This is a district-wide thing. Scope of work, we're looking at bullet-resistant glass, lockdown automation, security doors, card access, and much more. This is just to mention a few of the things on the front offices. Timeline is early as March of 22, spring break, and then having everything completed by July of 22 before the children return from summer break. Again, we have the architect working strong on this project right now, and we're aligning to Madison's safety security audit that we had done a while back. There was a lot of things identified in that are very important, and we're bringing all that information and data into these designs, along with looking at the latest and greatest what's happening out there. Okay. And yes, and 2 slides to show you a couple of scenarios. The first one is over at Madison Meadows, one of our newer builds. There's a little bit of work to do there, not much. So we're going to add the bullet-resistant glasses, as you see in the picture, along with bullet-resistant material cladding to the casework. And that's one of the simpler projects that'll probably be done over spring break. The next one up is Madison Camel View. Now, Camel View is a wonderful school. It is 25 years old right now, so it's not that old, but it's at that point in its life where it needs some revitalization, some life cycle changes. And 25 years ago, this design was a real open front office. No security doors into the admin suite or the hallways to the students. So we're looking at putting the bullet-resistant glass there along with security doors. We're going to do some refresh on materials, flooring, ceiling, paint, things like that. Okay, my last slide is just kind of build on what ADM Group showed us earlier. today, and this is just a viewpoint from me and the trades guys and things we're doing out there. So safety, security, higher, stronger fencing, card access, intrusion detection systems, lockdown systems, security doors, bullet-resistant glass, privacy screens for the classrooms. We have those glass partitions. We're also doing screens on those. And when I say screens, it's more of a curtain. So window treatments and films, healthy environment, high-grade HVAC filtering. I've talked about this quite a bit. We keep, this keeps growing, and we're looking at the latest and greatest systems and what we can do with the filtration. We're doing that. We're adding air purification to the systems. So we're conditioning that air, not just temperature-wise, but for particles and contaminants. Natural lighting, we've got windows and of course we have windows. As ADM mentioned, we have like those fins along the windows, so it's blocking the direct sunlight but allowing the indirect sunlight. So we're having that natural light enter those spaces without the radiant heat heating that room up. So we have easy clean services. We paid a lot of attention to, with all the extra cleanings we're doing, what's the best surfaces and the easiest to clean. We're implementing those in design. And outdoor learning areas, also healthy environment, getting them out in the fresh air, spreading them out. Energy consciousness, high efficiency HVAC. A few years ago, we did an energy study on one of our sites. It was actually Meadows Phase 1, where we had these glass partition walls to the classrooms and the collaboration space. And we had a professional consultant look at this space and say, hey, what's the best we can do? Not only for maintaining a constant, comfortable temperature, but also energy savings. And we compared every type of system out there, and we qualified large multi-ton units, air-cooled units, to be that. And we're continuing that practice, using those, upsizing a bit, so we can do faster air transfer, fresh outdoor air in, and that. Natural lighting again, aids in energy consciousness, low-flow lab fixtures, and architectural features that block the light, those fins. The learning environment, operable glass walls to those classrooms, opening into those collaboration spaces. Dynamic lighting controls. Dynamic lighting control is a California standard that came out a few years ago, giving us 4 levels of light for whatever type of instruction is happening. We're following that. We're actually taking it a bit further. We're looking at power over Ethernet right now, which gives us really unlimited potential for manipulating light levels and control. Interactive displays in each classroom, and flex design furniture solutions. And that's been a really fun thing to do at these last couple of builds, and I'm glad we're carrying it to Park. We will have some traditional desks, some tables, some high tops, and other things. And just watching the kids load into these classrooms with that flexible design furniture, it's quite exciting because of the fact that they're excited to get a funner seating option, a more comfortable seating option. I think they're probably engaged a little better because they're really comfortable. All right, last up is what's unique about Park. It's a STEM school. We have the STEM Action Lab and Coding Lab. We have Makers Lab, Outdoor Makers Space, which is in a shaded canopy area between the buildings. We have a full football field, running track. It's home of Madison Highland Prep and home of Madison's Community Ed program. The campus is Madison's largest property, and I mention that because of the fact that's allowing us to do all these different things. The shaded outdoor areas, the outdoor maker space, and things of that nature. But that's my presentation for tonight. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Calvin. It's always fun to have you come and report on the bond projects and see where we are able to continue innovating, not just in the classroom, but also from a design and architectural standpoint, life cycle management, all of the things that add to our financial reputation as a district. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, I'm going to start with, Mr. Dr. Holston. Oh my goodness.
What's his
Dr.
name?
Osborne. My goodness.
Those of us who shaved today, Osborne. Just a question on the security enhancements. I noticed you named a few of the security enhancements. There's a whole bunch for some of the other schools as well. When are we guesstimating those would be accomplished? I know Park's eating up a lot of our initial, and I assume Meadows. When are we thinking some of the rest of those are going to be done? I don't know if it's a Ms. Garvey question or Mr. Calva.
Dr. Osborne, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca, members of the executive team. That's a good question, and we're moving fast. That's why the third project I showed us in those front offices doing that. We've been out at other sites. We're moving fast on these, and it's coming together. As far as detailed scheduling, we don't have that at this point, but other than sooner than later on everything.
So Dr. Osborne, members of the board, Dr. Buck, and executive team, just to expound on that a little bit, every front office will be touched with security upgrades. In talking with our leadership team, that seemed to be the first place that they really wanted to look. We are also looking at fencing in some areas to see if we can start improving some of that height-wise was part of our issue. And the other area that we've started with the pilot just to test different systems is a camera system for the schools that will be going in as well. We are starting at number 1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Causey. Okay. Ms. Gresham.
I just, real quick, just wanted to express my appreciation for Mr. Calvin. You do a great job on all our projects. If any issues come up, you're very thorough. So I'm just really impressed with the job you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
I remember when we didn't have Mr. Calvin.
Yes.
And I am so, I continue to be grateful and proud of the economies that you're able to achieve as it relates to life cycle management and the bidding process and the hiring process of our architects and our contractors, and with Ms. Garvey and you working closely together. I really, and Dr. Baca, of course, I'm very appreciative. Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, actually, you stole my thunder because it's a huge difference in having someone like you, Mr. Calvin, who lives and breathes doing our projects, and not only on the bidding side, but a lot of what you've seen here is the value engineering, which has done in the past, where sometimes value engineering just cut and made things cheaper, whereas everything that we do is also try to make things better. And most of the projects that we have come in under budget or working, and that's because of the oversight you have. And I still have great hope for you. By the time I leave here, you will have us, building Park as a STEAM school.
Absolutely.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, I want to say thank you on behalf of the board for your presentation, which is always thorough, and all these updates.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca, members of the executive team, I appreciate the comments. Thank you. But I can't take all the gratitude alone. I mean, our board, our administration, our staff out at the schools, our community, our voters. I mean, there are so many components that make these things happen. And, they say it takes a village. We've got a village. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 9.1, Dr. Bach, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board and executive team. As you know, we have embarked on a superintendent's search for next school year. Ray & Associates is here tonight. Dr. Steve Chestnut is here in person, and Dr. Jan Vesley is joining us by phone. So I called Dr. Chestnut forward as we pull up the presentation. What he will be going through is an update as where we are, especially in regards to the focus groups that they met with, as well as results of the survey. Tonight you also will be taking action on 2 items together, which is the draft application that would be made available starting tomorrow, as well as the brochure that would go along with that. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Chestnut.
Thank you, Dr. Baca. Good evening, President Spear, members of the governing board, executive team. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. and a lot of exciting things to talk about. As was mentioned, my name is Dr. Steve Chesed. I'm a regional search consultant with Ray & Associates, and I'm presenting tonight with my colleague, Dr. Jan Vesley, who will be participating by phone. Jan, are you there?
I am. Good evening, President Spear, members of the board, Dr. Baca, and the Madison community. We just really want to thank you for the opportunity to share our update tonight on the superintendent search. So it's great to see all of you. Thank you.
Last time I was on the phone, and Jan was in person, so we are switching it up tonight. Dr. Barb Goodwin is our third team member, but she is unable to participate tonight. This evening, we're excited to share with you the feedback we have gathered through our conversations with the governing board and 6 constituent groups, along with the results of the online survey that was sent out to your staff, students, parents, and community. And as we go through this, please ask questions, because there will definitely be some, and I'm happy to take them at any time. And Jan will be answering questions as well, so you can direct those questions to either one of us. We'd like to start by expressing our special thanks to your internal staff who worked to get things set up for us to gather all of this input. Thank you to Danielle, and we particularly want to thank Nicole Rodriguez, who's done a great job of including a wonderful flyer that will be an important part of the publicity for this search. We'd also like to thank all who participated in the constituent group meetings, as well as everyone who completed an online survey. All this input is crucial to a successful search process. Before we move on to our findings, we want to share what we hope will be the outcomes of our time together this evening to review and discuss the constituent group information, do a summary of the online survey, get consensus on the 10 to 12 quality characteristics desired of the new superintendent so that those can be placed in the flyer, review and finalize the flyer, and then approve the flyer and the application. We also want to keep you apprised of where we are in the search timeline. Tonight we are finishing up on the second stage of the search process by reporting our findings and by having the board identify the things I just mentioned. Once these 3 items are finalized, tomorrow we'll move into stage 3 of our 4 stages, which is opening the vacancy and marketing to potential applicants. The application window will be open until November 15th, and we'll be marketing heavily up to that point. We'll then bring a screened and vetted group of candidates back to the governing board for you to review, discuss, and decide who you would like to move forward in the interview process. We'd like to remind all constituents who have or will be giving feedback during the search process that all the feedback you provide is shared with the governing board. The governing board will review this feedback, consider the suggested interview questions that you provided during focus groups, for example, and read the comments that you submit. So all of this feedback is a very important part of the process, and we try to capture it all. So I'm not going to go through the entire timeline. I think you're fairly familiar with it. Just to remind you that we're going to have 2 options to talk about interview questions. We'll ask you to discuss those on November 9th, and then we will finalize those on November 23rd. So that should speed things up if you get a chance to work on them a little bit on November 9th. And I believe you all have all seen that list of questions already. Okay. A very important part of the search process is to gather input from constituent groups to hear from them directly concerning the characteristics they would like to see in the new superintendent. Jan, Barb, or I conducted each constituent group session via Zoom, and we had excellent participation from certified staff, classified staff, parents, students, community members, and administrators. We also conducted individual interviews with governing board members. The board received detailed reports from each stakeholder group, and as you will see, this presentation is a summary of those reports. As the graphic shows, we like to think we think this input provides the base of our pyramid process leading to the selection of a new superintendent. This is the first staff slide, and it shows the major themes that emerge from teachers and certified staff. I greatly enjoyed my discussion with this group, and I won't read all of the themes that emerged. I know you can read those slides. But I think the wonderful quote at the bottom of the slide summarizes their input very well. The district has a welcoming culture that emphasizes high-quality instruction by teachers, but does not emphasize competition. I had a great discussion with the certified staff. This is the second staff slide, and it shows the major themes from the classified staff constituent group. One of their themes was one we heard from every constituent group, and their quote is shown at the bottom. When I came to Madison, I found there were few other districts that do what we do. In Madison, we see lots of generational pride as students return, as parents or employees of our district. Our community is very invested and supports us. We also had the opportunity to meet with community members. And here's some themes that are not on the slide that were also are quite good. Number one, they said we are all very proud of the district and the longevity of its success. They stated that Madison is a good place to work and is financially solid. They believe the new superintendent must diplomatically make decisions, remain nonpartisan, mentor the principals, and be technology-minded. They believe that critical issues that the new superintendent may face include meeting the needs of a diverse population and building and sustaining a solid relationship with the governing board. They believe the new superintendent needs to focus on best practices and move away from the factory model of how to lead and educate. And they told us, as you can see on the slide, kids want to come to Madison, even if they don't live here, they drive in. I'm guessing their parents drive them, but I think I got the point that they were trying to make there. We also talked to a very committed and communicative parent group. And in addition to the themes on the slide, they told us these things. They're very proud of the signature programs at Madison. Several of them either purposely bought a house in the area or chose to come to Madison from outside the district, or mentioned that many families choose to come to Madison because of the academic excellence, specialty programs, and quality of staff. They mentioned the stable, close-knit, and actively involved community. They stated that many community members went to school in Madison. They feel the community supports the district and the district supports the community. They believe that social emotional wellness must continue to be a priority as the district continues to deal with the issues around the pandemic. They feel the new superintendent should spend the first few months listening and assessing rather than making big changes right away. And they believe the new superintendent must have a calm demeanor, keep the needs of the whole district in mind, embrace data, and know how the Arizona legislature works, and continue Madison's forward movement. Our favorite constituent group to talk to is always the students, and Jan, Barb, and I always have, we fight over who gets to take that group. And I'm always amazed at the mature insights that they share, and that quote at the bottom is a good example, and it says, "Our new superintendent should make sure there is something for every student so everyone belongs." I had the opportunity to facilitate the administrator constituent group, and we had an excellent discussion. My favorite quote from that group is shown at the bottom and states, "The culture of the district is that all staff play a vital role, and it takes all staff members for the district to succeed." Jan, Barb, and I interviewed each governing board member individually. We had excellent discussions, and my favorite quote from those interviews is at the bottom of the slide and states, "Our board has different perspectives. We have robust debates, yet we all support the final decisions we make, and we like each other." Imagine that, board members that like each other. It's wonderful. Okay, next, the results of the online survey. The purpose of the survey was to identify the qualities and characteristics that Madison Elementary would like to see in their new superintendent. Each respondent was asked to choose their top 10 qualities and characteristics out of 31 options. Our goal tonight, as I mentioned, is to have the board identify the top 10 or 12 qualities that can be included in the flyer to be shared with prospective applicants. And those qualities and characteristics will tell potential applicants if they are a good fit for the job. So it's an important list. The online survey was made available on your district website from September 17th until October 5th. Direct invitations were sent via email to the Madison School District community for participation in the 31 Qualities Survey. The survey was available in English and Spanish. There were 725 responses to the survey, and you can see we had a great response from parents. Many people also included comments which have been shared with the governing board for their review. And we recommend to the governing board that this is also great information to share with your new superintendent when he or she arrives, as it will give him or her a great overview of the feedback gathered from a variety of subgroups. The next slide shows the raw data gathered by the survey. So board members, if you can find your paper handout with this information. You may want to refer to it, as it is way easier to view than
board
this
members,
slide.
you have it in your executive content on Board Docs that you can click on and see.
You'll recall that each person taking the survey was asked to select their 10 most desirable list of qualities and characteristics from a list of 31. This raw data is listed by subgroup. The first column on the left numbers each of the quality and characteristic choices. If you look at the last column on the right, the numbers match, but there's also a descriptor of the quality, so you can keep track of it. The horizontal column right under the header lists each subgroup, classified staff, students, administrators, and so on. And then under each subgroup, there are two columns. There's a raw score column, so that indicates the number of times respondents chose each quality. So the higher the number, the more times the quality was chosen by that subgroup. And then the rank is how this quality ranks out of the 31 by that subgroup. So, for example, if you look under the subgroup of teachers and certified support staff, you can see that quality number 1 was chosen 80 times and is ranked number 2, which means willing to listen to input and is a decision maker, is the teacher's respondent's second choice, right? That was their second highest ranked choice. If you look at quality number 31 in that same column for teachers and certified support staff, you can see that number 31 was selected 90 times, so that was their number 1 ranked choice. So you read those raw and ranked columns the same for each subgroup. I'm sure you studied this and have that all figured out, but I just thought I'd refresh your memory. Any questions on that before I forge ahead? Okay, the next slide looks at ranking only for each subgroup, and all rankings are totaled. So if you look at quality number 1, follow the numbers horizontally across, you can see that the administrators, students, and non-parent community members selected this as their number 1 quality overall. And every subgroup that chose this quality had it in their top 4. Therefore, the total raw score for this selection was 15, and the ranking is number 1. Remember, on this slide, the lower the raw score, the higher the ranking. You can also see that we are recommending that quality number 1 be combined with quality number 13, as they both deal with interpersonal skills, and number 13 was ranked 11th overall. Our team looks at a variety of data points when finalizing our column titled Consultant Recommendations. For example, how many subgroups selected the same quality in their top 10? Were there themes that came through in this focus groups that support that selection? And that's how we come up with our recommended list. So you can see that those recommendations in the second to the last column on the right. These are only recommendations, and the governing board makes a final decision concerning which qualities are included in the final list of 10 to 12. 3 qualities are listed as consider, as they are important to some groups but not to others. These 3 may be included in your list of the top 10 or 12, obviously, or they may not, and that is up to you. These consider items could also be used to develop interview questions or use them that way. Any questions on that page? So the next slide is an easier to read list, and I think you have a handout with this information also. So that's an easier to read list of the recommended qualities that were on the previous page. And once decided, as I mentioned, this list will be in the flyer. I assume the governing board would like to discuss this recommended list, and be interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Now, are you suggesting that we would consider adding these 3 at the bottom of the page to our existing recommend? Okay.
No, I'm just letting you know I'm listening. I would recommend you go with 10.
Okay.
But if you're stuck and you need 11th or 12th to get consensus, then I think you need to add the 11th or 12th.
No, I would prefer to stick with 10. I think that it's a better approach. I think that if we start getting to, we lose focus. So with that, Ms. Causey.
So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me, but quality 29. I just feel like it's a given. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have a problem with it.
I agree with you. I actually didn't put that in there because to me that was an understood baseline requirement in anybody that we were to even consider. So for me, that was a far gone conclusion, and so I didn't want to waste characters in our very tight description for that to be there.
I would like
I agree with that as well.
student
That's right.
performance, the ability to enhance student performance, especially in identifying, closing, or narrowing the gap if we were going to replace it, to me. But
I'm sorry,
that's just my...
Ms.
Can you
Causey,
say
I
that
couldn't
again,
hear
Ms.
you.
Causey?
My replacement suggestion is the first consider would be quality number 25.
I like that one too. I'm happy with the list as it is, but if we were going to change or add anything, I would like that first one on the considering.
Yeah, I think the fact that we have number 5, the strong moral compass and justice and equality is similar enough to and I agree with adding the student performance.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with the student performance. I think that is important. But I saw on the governing board level, and at least from my standpoint, there's makes recommendations and data-driven decisions. And most of the board members, if you look at things, chose that one, and it ranked very highly. And I think that's been sort of a signature part of our board. So I think that one is. I don't think it's duplicated the other ones. I think that one's an important determination. The second recommendation, makes recommendations and data-driven decisions, is the second one under consider.
I have a thought on that. Is the first bullet under recommend possesses excellent interpersonal skills, presents positive image of the district, listens to input. The fourth is a strong communicator in speaking, listening, and writing. To me, those two are also similar enough that they could be combined, which would then allow the second one to be included.
I have a
Yes.
suggestion too, and
Yes.
I don't have strong feelings, but I think you could also include consider 1 and consider 2 into one, and I would start by saying makes data-driven decisions, including the ability to use something like, because there's two sets of data-driven. There's all the financial investments, that piece, and then the second piece is the academic data-driven, and I think combining those two could be another way you could add them both and do what Ms. Spear. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other.
So I want to make sure I get this. So President Spear, you were going to combine which items?
The first, which is possesses excellent interpersonal skills, and then the fourth, which is a strong communicator in speaking, listening, and writing. Because to me, a strong communicator in speaking, listening, and writing is another foregone conclusion. We're not going to hire a poor communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to be able to identify if they are an effective communicator in speaking and in writing.
Yeah, I agree.
That's another baseline requirement, in my opinion.
Sure.
Dr. Baca, you were...
I'm just wanting, Madam President, members
Yes.
of the board, I just want to make sure Ms. Rodriguez is going to have to redo the brochure by tomorrow, so we just want to make sure we get it explicit. The other thing that I would, as a person who has applied for jobs,
yes,
and these are very important, it gives me an indication of what I need to highlight. So don't take for granted that somebody has done something. They may not highlight it, and you may want them to. So that would be my only suggestion to you from a person on the application side, that I look as to what I feel is important for the governing board in terms of what they desire in their superintendent, and I want to highlight that either on my resume or in my cover letter or in another parts of it, including for references when references are called.
Well, that is a very fair point.
Yeah, Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, and that, I think that is important, and I appreciate that insight. With that, however, this is important. I wouldn't, if we feel the first two under consider are important, and based upon what Dr. Baca just said, I would rather get the things that we think are important than be limited to the difference between 10 and 12. And from our historically 12 is a good number too, as much as 10. I think those two things that we just discussed are important. And if we really want those things to be highlighted, you tell me if I'm going astray, but I don't think from a substantive standpoint, the difference between 10 and 12, difference between 10 and 20 is something. But the difference between 10 and 12, I think, is less important than getting out what we want in the qualities.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. I have a proposal for combining 25 and 26. Okay, I haven't read this much myself yet. Possesses the ability to enhance student performance using data to drive, identify, and close the gaps in student achievement and opportunity.
Okay.
Because really, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but you're using data to make financial decisions. Like, I don't know what else you would use, right? Am I losing my mind? Yeah, I mean, it's numbers, right? So I think we want to focus on the data components when it comes to driving student performance. That would be,
I agree with you.
I think would be implicit.
I apologize, Scott. Could you say that again? What are you proposing?
Combining 25 and 26 so that we don't have to combine 1, which is now 1 and 13 combined, and 6.
And I'm sorry, Ms. Causey, when you say 25 and 26, where is it on this sheet here?
Yes, these are qualities. I'm referring to the qualities, the quality numbers.
Two considers.
Yeah,
Got it.
sorry.
They're numbers.
There's two considers.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'm with you.
So possesses the ability to enhance student performance using data to drive, and it could be to identify, drive, and close the gaps in student achievement and opportunity. I don't know. I can still use a little work, but yeah. What do you guys think?
I think it's getting a little that is combining too many elements. And from my standpoint, and again, this is personal, so I'm not trying to overdo the survey, but this was popular, particularly with also the ability to make recommendations, because my experience in government work generally and superintendents is there are a number of places where recommendations are not wanted. They want somebody to carry out direction, and I think the making recommendations is an important part of it.
Can you define? So to me, it's very vague. Can you tell me when you read this what it means? Makes recommendations and data-driven decisions.
It is, to me, it means that they come and actually give your opinion, and they are making the recommendations that they think are the best for it. Because, at least, again, I've had experience both in school boards. School boards, it depends on the relationship between the superintendent and the school board, or city manager and a city. One example is Queen Creek. For a while, their city council, town council, did not want the opinions of the staff. There was a group of they wanted the staff to carry out what they were directed to do.
So my question, Mr. Holcomb, is able to build consensus and commitment among individuals and groups. Does that address your concern?
No, it doesn't. Okay. It's actually the idea that they come out and say, I recommend this, willing to come out and say, tell us what you think the best is. And I apologize. That's when, if you think, a lot of times when I talk to the superintendents, I say, I want you to give me your recommendation, because I've been in situations where the governing body has stopped that or has not wanted that. Am I speaking out of turn from your experience or from your experience? That's why the making recommendations to me just hits a trigger.
Dr. Osborne?
So I think the better way to say 26 to get at Ms. Causey's concern is make data-driven recommendations and decisions.
Right.
So it's confusing because it says make recommendations, and then you only make decisions based on, like, I think it's both.
Work for you?
But I don't care if we add 11 or 12.
Again, for Ms. Nicole Rodriguez, we just need to be explicit in terms of if you're changing the language.
Makes data driven.
recommendations, and decisions.
Does that make
does that
sense?
satisfy your?
It does.
Okay. Does that satisfy the board? The rest of the board? As it does me. So let's leave it as makes data-driven recommendations and decisions.
So are we adding those two? We're going to have 12 and we're not changing these, or?
Yes, I am going to defer to Mr. Holcomb, who suggested that adding 1 and 13 being already combined, adding number 6 to it is too much. And I am also going to defer to Dr. Baca's suggestion that you don't want to necessarily eliminate things based on an assumption. I believe it was my very first boss who said the road to hell is paved with assumptions. And I'm doing just that. So,
I thought that was you, when you assume you make an ass out of you and me.
well, I wasn't going to go there, but yep.
This is a G-rated show, Mr. Holcomb.
So with that thought, should we continue to keep commitment and experience working with all races, genders, and socioeconomic groups?
I think it's fine.
If it is your recommendation, if you feel as that is something that needs to be stated,
That's our recommendation, but you know the local culture better than we do. I would recommend that it be in there because I think it's good to call attention to that issue.
Well, and if based on the surveys, that was a high ranking one, we should keep it.
Okay, then let's go ahead.
I assume we're adding then 25 and 26. Is that the consensus?
Yes.
With Dr. Osborne's change to 26.
Yes, which is makes data-driven recommendations and decisions, as it reads now. Are there any other, and did we, Nicole, if I may,
Is it clear?
number 25, do you have sufficient direction from us with regards to the wording of it?
26.
26. No, 26 I just rewrote.
25 is staying as is because we're not going to combining 25 and 26.
Thank you. Sorry. Got stuck in the weeds there for a moment.
So, do we need a motion, or is the guidance just enough? And is it
And
clear?
Dr. Osborne, thank you for that question, Madam President and members of the board. What I would suggest is knowing that you are approving, because what's agendized is the brochure, which includes and embeds the recommendations. And so when you make your motion to approve the brochure, it's with the changes as discussed right now regarding the 12 recommendations you are making.
Okay. Are there any, before we accept a motion to approve, is there anything that needs to be addressed? And again, forgive me if I'm getting ahead of myself here with regards to the flyer.
And Madam President,
Yes.
I would suggest you go, the way in which it's agendized is to
Yes.
approve both the brochure and the application. Unless you're wanting to separate both motions, you'd have to take voice votes since on the system it's not set up that way.
Okay. But we need to have one motion.
The motion is to approve the brochure and application as discussed.
Okay.
And then we will include, based on that motion, we will include the changes that you have made to item 26 and include in the brochure 12 as opposed to 10 qualifications.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Chestnut?
I was just going to make sure
We have we have discussed, had a robust conversation and are going to all live by the final decision, and we continue to like each other. So
I'm impressed, yeah.
That forward,
If I could just double check the wording on number 26, I heard makes data-driven recommendations and decisions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, then I think we're good. I think we got it. Okay. Moving on. The next thing we need to review is the flyer. And so please refer to the flyer that was in your handouts. As you know, we're going to embed those 12 qualities you have discussed tonight. And I assume the governing board would like to discuss the flyer.
If you don't have a hard copy, it's also on the, but you should, okay.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to give the board just a couple of minutes to review it and refresh your memory, since you've all looked at it previously. With that, I will take any comments, suggestions, thoughts from board members. Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, I'm impressed with it each time I read it, and I'm also impressed by the fact that there have been multiple sets of eyes that have already gone through it, I think we would be just moving. I don't know that there's anything we can do to really improve this for the purpose. I think we'll also respect the input that's been put in by the staff, and as we did with the input from the community on the survey.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, thoughts? I agree with Mr. Holcomb. I believe that this has been vetted, reviewed. I know that it has been evaluated by Ray and Associates, and their expertise has weighed in as well. Okay. Then with that, unless Dr. Chestnut, do you have anything more for us to consider, or is there any more of your presentation or report for us?
Nothing in relation to the brochure. We do need to talk about the application next, but...
Okay, then yes, thank you.
Madam President, just since Ms. Rodriguez was involved in this, do you have any concerns or issues about the flyer, Ms. Rodriguez?
She is nodding her head and shaking her head no, excuse me.
What about Dr. Baca? Do you usually have any issues?
Nope. Looks
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The next thing we need to review is the application, and you should have received a copy of that for review. In addition to the application, applicants will also submit a resume, a letter of introduction, and 4 letters of reference. And I assume the board would like to discuss the application.
This is a fairly pro forma document, correct?
It is. We use it hundreds of times a year, and it works well.
Thank you. Dr. Osborne.
Just a small question. Is it a fillable, like the education, since a lot of them will have PhDs, there's usually 3 spots for education, not 2, you know.
You can add additional degrees, yes.
Are there any other questions, concerns, or comments with regards to the application? Seeing none, the floor is yours again.
Excellent. I don't have an agenda in front of me, so I don't know exactly when you're going to vote on all this stuff. But let me see. I'm getting down to my last page here, so that's a good sign. Just a quick review of the next steps on the slide. We will advertise for vacancy beginning tomorrow. So we'll really get going tomorrow, which is very exciting. That application window will be open until November 15th. We will be doing the candidate screening and vetting. Myself, Jan, and Barb will do that personally. We'll present the top candidates to you at your meeting on November 23rd. And then the first round of interviews are scheduled to begin on November 29th.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes my presentation, unless you have any other questions.
No. Are there any questions, comments, or suggestions from board members about the calendar as we see it? Anything else before I accept a motion to approve the changes as we identified clearly and move forward? Okay, with that, I will accept a motion to, to approve the updates regarding the superintendent search process as we have identified.
I think, Madam President, I think the motion is to approve the flyer as modified during our discussion, and to approve also the application as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Holcomb, seconded by Ms. Causey. Please vote. That motion is approved. Moving on, thank you very much, Dr. Chestnut and Dr. Vesley on the phone.
Thank you.
Moving on to 9.2. Dr. Baca.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board and Executive Team. As you know, annually, school districts must approve the annual financial report per state law. Tonight, Ms. Lori Garvey, our Deputy Superintendent, will be presenting that on behalf of the district. Ms. Garvey?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Baca, and executive team. The annual financial report that I will be presenting tonight compiles all of the financial information for the last fiscal year, so the last school year. It goes through June 30th of 2021. And I will be going through the report on a page by page just to point out the highlights of each page of the financial report itself. So on page 1, we look at the maintenance and operation and capital revenue. Those are two major funds of the district that are funded, as you can see here. The two main sources are property taxes and state aid. So 65.7% of our revenue in those funds comes from property tax and 31.3% comes from state aid. Next slide. And our page 2 covers our maintenance and operations expenditures. So these are our day-to-day expenditures. This year, the report is a little bit different than it's been in the previous year, just because we have all these different funding sources last year that we did not have in any prior year. So when we look at maintenance and operation expenditures here, and we break it out by function as the report does, so the function categorizes, it's the category or type of expenditure. So you can see it's instruction, which is directly in the classroom, instruction support, which includes all the supports for a child in the classroom of an instructional nature, or a health and wellness. So it could be a speech therapist, it could be a nurse. Many of the special ed categories fall under instruction support. Staff support goes for our coaches, it goes for professional development. School administration, central administration is pretty self-explanatory, just to know whenever they talk about administration, it also does include any office staff or any people that are carrying out the business of the operations. So sometimes people think administration is solely administrators, but it's not. It's more encompassing than that. And then we have maintenance, transportation, and non-instructional services. That's what it is called on the annual financial report, but it is really our food service program. We do have to pay some, we are required to accept federal dollars for our lunch program to have a matching amount come out of maintenance and operations. So that's why there are some food expenditures within our M&O budget. Instruction at 48.8% probably looks a little bit low to you, and the reason for that, and we'll see here on our next slide, is because the enrollment stabilization grant that helped when we were reduced to the 95% because in funding, this was money to help backfill that, as well as the drop in enrollment that districts across the state saw. So a lot of our expenditures for our teachers, it's basically what the enrollment stabilization grant paid for, the majority, not all, but the majority. So when normally that would have been an expenditure in M&O, it shows you that really in M&O, almost 54% of our expenditures went into instruction. Then to that we add the classroom site fund expenditures, which we normally do because this includes teacher base pay and certified pay for performance. And so it's part of supporting that classroom teacher. And so we look there, and it is at our 54%. And I want to say that it's at or even a little bit higher than it's been in the previous years. Page 1 also breaks out our M&O by program. So our programs are regular education, special education, and transportation. 19% of our M&O budget did go into special ed, 77% into regular education, and transportation at 4%. Then if we look at totals, because it takes it even further and it breaks it out by object, what type of expenditures did these go to? So we have salaries, benefits, purchase service, utilities, and supplies. M&O total expenditures for last year were $37.3 million. The budget was $39.3 million. So our budget balance carry forward for maintenance and operation going into the current year in which we are is $1.9 million. And then if we add the enrollment stabilization grant, because this is what would have been paid out of M&O, had that grant not been there, the total comes to $39,348,000, with the largest increase in the salaries and benefits. And there was a little bit for supplies. And then when you look at it by object, 84.3% is in salaries and benefits, and 7.6% in purchase service, and then utilities at 5.3%, with supplies at 2.8% of our budget. And then when you add the enrollment stabilization, because of the little bump in salaries there that were transferred over, it actually raises our salaries and benefits to 85% of the total budget. The classroom site fund is displayed on page 3. It is the certified base salaries and benefits and the certified pay for performance. Those are the totals that were paid out of those funds. Page 4 goes over the capital expenditures. This past year, our total in capital expenditures was just a little over $2 million. You can see the breakdown of expenditures, and probably not surprising, one of our largest purchases for last year, considering the year and the additional Chromebooks and the additional technology that we put in to deliver the remote learning, was a little over $1 million, being the large half of what we spent in capital. Page 5 looks at our federal and state projects. Federal projects in total, we spent $2.4 million with Title I and IDEA Part B, special ed that is, being our largest group of expenditures. Then we have our other federal, state, other federal projects. They lumped them all together, but I thought it would be a little bit more interesting if we separated it out to see what was in there. So CARES Act, we spent $331,000. That was the first round of, we don't want to call it ESSER, but sometimes we fall back and call it ESSER 1. So that was the first round that we received in May, that we were allocated back in May of 2020, sorry. And then it carried forward, and it will carry forward. We have a little bit of a balance, not much, but we have about $150,000 left to spend, and we can do that through next September of 22. The enrollment stabilization at $1.9 million, that was completely spent this past year. ESSER 3, we've spent $100,185. That was the money that was just allocated in May, and that went to our summer school program. The expenditures through June, so we still had some expenditures in July, but that will be paid out of the current year. Nothing has been spent yet out of ESSER 2. And then we have targeted support and improvements of $22,606. We had 3 state projects that we received money for and had expenditures, results-based funding, and then we had our school safety program along with the school safety program expansion when we received our second round of for school safety that basically went to some counselors. And then page 6 comes up with our other funds of the district that are our major funds. You can see the two largest ones here with the expenditures were community ed and food services. And on page 7 and 8, they have, we gathered just a lot of this information. It's just reported in different ways because the state has started using the annual financial report as the mechanism to prepare numbers that they need for national reports. So we are now required to just take the same information that I gave you, but just put it in different formats. But a few things that haven't been anywhere else is that average teacher salary that we report. It also goes on our website. But as you can see, last year the average salary of a teacher employed was $56,304. You can see that was a $2,681 increase from the year before, or 5%. And since 2018, overall, the percentage in the increase in the average teacher salary was 22.5%. And this is on our last page, page 8. I just thought it was interesting. So another way to show the same information, but it puts all of our expenditures together. And it shows us that our total district expenditures last year were almost 67.9 million. Of that, we do have, it does not include our debt service payment. I didn't include that. So our debt service payment is the money that we levy for the taxpayers to repay our bonds. But this does include payments or expenditures on our bond projects are included in that 67.8 million. And that is the summary of the annual financial report. It does get posted on our website or linked to it. So if anybody would like to go look at it or have further questions, contact information is on it and it will be posted on our website.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Dr. Osborne.
Ms. Garvey, going back to the other fund revenue, just a couple quick questions. How is the Highland Prep revenue accounted for? And then on community ed, I know that revenue number took a big hit. Just give me a sense of where that was pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and then
Sure.
how do we account for Highland Prep?
Sure. So we account for Madison Highland Prep in the Civic Center Fund, which is the school plant Civic Center on a long-term lease.
Okay.
So anything over a year gets accounted for there.
So that's is that
That's the
248?
248,000
Okay.
that we had in expenditures. And it does go to help pay for the additional services at Madison Highland Prep, that like custodial, the electricity. And then community education started in a pre-COVID world, they had about a $2.4 million carry forward to $3 million, somewhere in that area, depending on the year, and they're down now around $1 million.
So the 5.1 that's a revenue.
That's an expenditure.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was thinking these.
That's an expenditure, and I believe that, let me just look very quickly here. The revenue for the year in community ed was 3.5 million. So you can see there is a substantial decrease.
So in the 19 community ed revenue was roughly.
What's more around the 6.5 million to 6 million.
Okay. That's even more dramatic than.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Very good report.
Ms. Gresham.
Thank you for this report, Ms. Garvey. I'm curious about the SR2 funds. Is there a plan for those, and when do those need to be spent by?
Yes, there is a plan for the SR2 dollars. We received those. We received the award amount. The application came out a few months after that, so we did not receive the award, and we submitted the grant probably in March, April. And those need to be spent by September of 2023. So we are definitely have them budgeted and started spending them this year.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I will accept a motion to approve the 2020-2021 annual financial report and authorize publication of the district-wide summary per state statute.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Osborne, seconded by Mr. Holcomb. Please vote. As always, thank you, Ms. Garvey. That motion passes. Moving on to 10.1, discussion regarding future meetings. Dr. Baca.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board and executive team. I just want to highlight for October 26th, Rose Lane will be having their school showcase outdoors with their xylophones, so we're happy to start bringing some of those showcases back in a very safe manner. In addition, you'll have an update with the superintendent search process, as well as many policies coming to you as a first read. I just want to remind everyone, you that on November 9th, we will have an executive session. That specifically is to go over the interview questions and to select those that you can either finalize on that night or wait until the 23rd to do that after your discussion with Ray and Associates, and I would leave that up to you. Just so you know, the special meetings have been added for the 23rd and 29th, all dealing with the superintendent search process. So with that, I welcome any questions or comments or additions to future agenda items.
Dr. Baca, I just had a quick question about regarding, I believe, go up one, the meeting,
November
the
9th?
executive session, correct. We have a school showcase before the executive session?
The school showcase, depending on what they're able to do safely, it may or may not take place.
Okay.
Even if we do have that school showcase, however prepared you might be, you may then limit your discussion during executive session to 45 minutes so you can participate in the school showcase, or if we do have a school showcase and you anticipate it go longer, we could move the executive session to an earlier start time. It's up to you.
My only question was, I think it's going to be we have to make sure the board, so the school showcase would go on for the first 15 minutes of that session, correct? Is that what you're suggesting?
Usually the board arrives like around 5:45.
5:45, okay.
Before a 6 o'clock board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we can do the questions in 45.
Yes, I do too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Holcomb, you had a question?
Yeah, if I may, there was an IGA on that. I just wondering what that intergovernmental agreement was for.
Ms. Garvey?
There was an IGA listed.
Coming on October 26th.
And LG is sponsoring it. I just was wondering what it was.
We don't know.
Madam President, I don't.
The mystery IGA. Okay, yeah. That's fine. I just was.
Let me just share with you that what you see in red is usually hold items that we have that we don't solidify. And today with Rose Lane, we just found out that we were able to do that safely.
Thank you.
Dr. Buck, I did just remember what that IGA is for. Maricopa County Department, I don't know if it's Department of Health, but Maricopa County provided a wellness stipend for the additional work that Lauren Kemmer in our Nutritional Services Division is doing, and they would like to extend her stipend, and it requires an IGA to come to the board for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Garvey.
Ms. Causey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have 3 hours then on the 23rd to go over the 10 videos and decide is that correct?
No. Ms. Causey, Madam President, members of the board, what you have is on the 23rd, you would already seen the videos,
right,
along
exactly.
with review the files. On the 23rd, Ray and Associates will present the candidates, and you're able to discuss them to decide which you wish to advance to the first round of interviews. It could be 3 hours, it could be less.
I just wanted to ask my fellow board members if you think we need 3 hours, if we've already reviewed the videos.
Again, my suggestion to you would be to start at 3.
Okay.
And you may end at 4, you may end at 5. Hopefully you don't end at 7.
I'm just asking.
Ms. Cosby, would it be easier if we moved it back to 4? I mean, because that doesn't
4
have
o'clock?
a big. For those of us who go by the hour, that eats up a big piece of our day. I'd be open to moving it back, and I think we can get done.
And just a reminder, that's the day before, or 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Oh, so
So we're keeping staff here then.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that involve, we have to have a meeting, so staff members would have to be here to start that? Is there
Yes.
there's a staff commitment?
There's a staff commitment only because you will take action to provide direction to Ray and Associates that you discussed in executive session.
All right, well, then we'll start at 3.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Dr. Osborne, seconded by Ms. Gresham. Please vote. Yeah. That motion passes. We are adjourned.
That was the rules.
You guys would know.